Asian markets started the trading week mostly higher on Monday after a roller coaster week that saw steep sell-offs across global stocks. Investors are now switching focus to key US data due out in the coming days, which will give them a better sense of the state of the economy. Taiwan's benchmark index led gains in the region, advancing 1.6%, closely followed by South Korean stocks, which jumped around 1%. Mainland China's CSI 300 and Hong Kong's Seng were mainly flat. Meanwhile, US indices closed the week lower on Friday ahead of the key inflation data. The Dow ended 0.6% lower, while the S&P 500 fell a slight 0.04%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite finished with a 0.18% loss. Let's get more on this now with Naeem Assam in London. He's Chief Investment Officer at Zay Capital Markets. Good to have you back on the programme, Naeem. Now, we're seeing a slight recovery since that sharp sell-off last week. What's eased investors' concerns?
Thanks for having me, Taiba. Look, I think there are two important factors that we need to pay attention to. Number one, remember the sell-off was primarily triggered because of the US NFP data, which came about nearly 2 weeks ago. And that really made investors nervous. And then there were expectations what the Fed is going to do. In addition, the second factor which really triggered the sell-off was mainly from Asia, and that is the intervention from BOJ in terms of the interest rate hikes, the investors' expectations around that, a little bit of a softness in the Chinese data. Now, it seems to us that investors have very much brushed away those concerns, and once again, they're looking at a more positive and optimistic side of things. But I think still one thing is very much sure for investors, and that is that the BOJ, because that was the in market which was impacted the most, is not going to increase interest rate, or shall we say, is not going to be able to increase the interest rate. And because of that, investors are saying, okay, loose monetary policy it is, and then the only way for the stock is to move to the upside. But I think there are still some roadblocks in the way which we're going to experience this particular week in terms of economic data.
Right. Now, you mentioned the BOJ, and Japanese markets were particularly volatile last week. They closed on Monday for a holiday. But what's the main reason behind the volatility in Japan? Is it just the BOJ?
I think pretty much the BOJ was the main concern for investors and traders, because everyone was thinking that, okay, how they're going to really react with so much treasuries that they have on the balance sheets, because they were unable to sell some of their, or they cannot sell some of the treasuries. And of course, if the increase in the interest rate and inflation situation made investors highly nervous.